Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another video for Eve Echoes. Today is Thursday, which means that Eve Echoes' official Twitter account has just posted the latest 4 responses in its weekly developer Q&A series. Now, there are some really interesting responses in this one, and I know that not everyone has access to Twitter, so what I like to do each week is to take those questions and the responses, read through them, and talk about what that means for the game and to give my own opinions on top. So that's what we're going to do in this particular video. If you do have a question you'd like to ask the developers, open up your ship's onboard AI, that's the little sort of golden circle that looks almost like an eye, tap on that, tap on Q&A, type in your question, and ask the developers. Any question that is chosen to be featured and responded to will receive a month of Basic Omega. So I highly recommend doing that if you've got questions, because you get a month of Basic Omega, and you get featured on my channel as well, which we all know is awesome. Now, before I jump into this week's video, I do have an important message. I hope you guys will, just bear with me for 2 quick minutes. Now, many of you may know that last week we had issues with our internet. Basically, our internet service provider decided to change our billing date, upped our bill by the equivalent of $65 a month, and didn't bother to tell us, which meant we went unpaid for 2 weeks. They then cut us off. We've had to pay to get that reinstated, plus a reconnection fee on top, which is great fun. Hi, welcome to Zimbabwe. And obviously that's going to be how it runs from now on. On top of this, our council has just put up our rates and water bill by about 50% as well, and our energy supplier has just upped tariffs by approximately 25%. This itself is pretty nasty as it stands, but we can just about cope with that. The issue arises in that Eskom, which is South Africa's energy provider, has just announced load shedding. But hang on, Benzie, that's South Africa, you're in Zimbabwe. Yeah, but it turns out the Zimbabwe grid is pretty much propped up by Eskom, so Bulawayo have notified us that we're going to be having daily load shedding, which means scheduled power cuts between 10 AM and 5 PM, Monday through Friday. That's really not fun. Now, this can be solved. We can fix this. Ultimately, this means Carrie and I just need to get our generator up and running. We have a generator, it just chews through fuel, and we need to get a load of fuel sorted. We are about $150 shy of the amount of fuel that we're going to need for the next month. So I really hate to do this, but please, if you could spare even just $1, head over to my Patreon, pledge what you can to support. It will be taken out of your account, I believe, on the Tuesday the 1st of June. It should process the card payments. You are then free to cancel any pledge there and then. We really, really are panicking here and need to find something to help us through this next month. Any pledge you can help. Link to Patreon is on screen and in the description down below. If you can help, please. It would be so unashamedly appreciated, and I'm so sorry to start a video off begging like this, but we really need your help. Right, with all of that said and done then, let's put a big smile on our face and get on with this week's developer Q&A, because as I said, there are some seriously cool questions this week. The first one, any plan to add Jung faction ships in monthly login rewards for who aren't claimed yet in early? Now, the mealy-mouthed sentence there, I think, is saying, is there any chance that we're going to get the Jung faction ships added back to monthly login rewards for those of us who missed out on those first time or perhaps have lost the ships in the meantime? Now, Lance responds, if you missed obtaining these ships previously, you will be able to acquire them using Scholar Points. This will be available sometime in July. Now, for someone who actually really likes the Jung ships and Decomposers, if you've watched my recent ranking of the weapon systems, you'll know that Decomposers are at the bottom of the list, despite them actually being really quite fun to use. This is awesome. Now, I'm going to go with the safe assumption that this means the Shunyue prototype and the Kanyue prototype are going to be available for purchase with Scholar Points, as are the weapon upgrade modules and the relevant turrets. I would like to hope, I would dare to perhaps dream, that maybe, because we've had Jung stuff teased recently, you saw recently with NetEase Connect, there was a lot of stuff about the Jung ships, that perhaps, just maybe, the Scholar Points might be used to buy the blueprints for the actual Shunyue Destroyer or the Kanyue Battle Cruiser, the non-prototype versions. Maybe we can use these to buy the turrets, the different versions, like the Mark 7, the Mark 9, the faction, the meta level, that kind of thing, to actually have the full array of different decomposers and weapon modules available. To me, that would be utterly incredible. I have been waiting for the Jung ships for a long time, and having the ability to buy those with scholar points, well, if you've watched my videos on exploration, or my videos especially on the Museum Arcana, you'll know that I absolutely adore that system. I know it's not overly used because the skins are limited time and not overly exciting, and otherwise it's just the shuttles, but I really like the Museum Arcana. I like the background and lore that it adds to the game, and I hope they do actually add some more things to find in Ancient Remains too, because I've nearly completed my account. I would like to have some more to find, and the ability to buy Jung ships and blueprints and that with the points, hell to the yes, that would be incredible. Moving on. From going one place to another places, it takes much time. Can you add some short route? It takes too much time for travelling, like 30 jumps. Well, I'm going to pause right here, and once again, yes, I know, brace yourselves, Benzie's going on a rant. I don't get why some people sit there and want to play the game, but don't want to play the game. And yet, look, I get it. I get it. If you're jumping across the entirety of New Eden, it takes a long time. If you're in EVE Online, by the way, it takes even longer. When I did the exploration video about the 5 places I'd love to see added, I needed to jump from Eggbinga, which is my home system, all the way down to the New Eden system, and it took a good 30 to 40 minutes for my probe to make those jumps, with me manually piloting. Autopilot would take even longer, because in EVE Online, autopilot drops you about, 20 kilometers from the gate, and then you have to slow approach your way to the gate. We don't have that in EVE Echoes. You land on the gate and you warp instantly. Oh, jump instantly, at least. We also have the ability to offline autopilot, and we have the 50% increase in low sec and 100% speed increase in high sec. I'm really not sure what else people want added at this point. Like, if you need to do 30 jumps, there are 2 things I need to ask. 1, why are you jumping 30 jumps frequently? Like, if you're in null sec and you need to make a Jita run, that's like, make it a weekly thing, not like a daily occurrence. Use it as kind of like your shopping trip. I don't go to the supermarket daily, just to pick up little bits and pieces. I do one big run each week. Alternatively, if you're doing encounter running, I'd ask why you're doing encounters that are 30 systems away. Find the encounters close to you, clear those ones, and then jump. If you do need to be jumping 30 systems, well, chances are that's in high sec or low sec, and you can do so on autopilot, which you can do offline here in EVE Echoes. I am genuine. I get why people want this, because it makes the game smaller, but it's like with World of Warcraft and other MMOs, you have to travel between places. You can't just click your fingers and magically appear the other side of the universe. And I read a really interesting article recently, I'll see if I can find a link and put it in the description, that talks exactly about this issue in EVE Online. And basically, as annoying as it can be, it adds to the sense of scale in the game. And EVE is not meant to be one of those games that you can just pick up for 5 minutes here and there. You are meant to be playing this game in good 30-minute plus bursts. It's like, League of Legends Wild Rift, or perhaps even things like PUBG, where games can take 20 upwards minutes quite comfortably in order for you to finish. This is not a quick pick up and play at the bus stop game. This is the kind of game you sit down in the evenings and play a long time, and I think that people keep asking for AFK, people keep asking for faster travel. We're going to end up with a game that is very, very different to what we currently have, and I think it would lose an awful lot in that. I'm not saying there shouldn't be easier content for people, but you need to understand that if you only have 30 minutes to play the game a day, then you don't deserve to be competitive. That's not fair on the people who are pouring hours and hours into the game. If you want to sit in high sec and just do 1 encounter per day, you should not be able to do that and afford a battleship in a week. It's going to take time. The whole thing is risk versus reward, effort to reward. Those are important facets of the EVE sort of the system. Anyway, what does Melos say? We are working on improving the overall experience when flying long distances, but it requires several rounds of iteration to help reduce any potential risks this change may have to the existing game. Additional details will be shared later on. It's also worth noting, I think, here as well, that you may even be able to find that in certain cases, you can scan down a wormhole, jump into that, well, sorry, nihilist space, jump into that, go along, and perhaps jump out somewhere else that's 30, 40 jumps away, like you can with wormholes in Eve. That would be pretty cool, but it's also worth noting here that the developers are taking this step by step. I keep saying that this is something that, developers, that netties are, prone to doing. Certainly with things like the destroyers and changes like that. I know a lot of people were disappointed the May update didn't get these massive sweeping changes that people were hoping for. But it's clear the developers like to take things step by step by step. If they think that you might need 2 or 3 steps to get something fixed, they'll do those steps one at a time to make sure that nothing gets broken and that we don't suddenly overstep and have to crank it backwards, because buffing things feels nice. Nerfing things, not so much. So buff it gently so you don't have to then nerf it again in the future. Let's move on. Now they say here, will there be any new customization options for ship appearance, such as updated skins or the ability to change basic colours of ships? Well, honestly, I think their skins or basic colours of ship change, they're pretty much the same thing. I think a lot of skins don't really do all that much to the ship. I mean, that's not a complaint. It's just that they're not necessarily massive shifts. I mean, if you look at a succubus standard and then you look at a rosethorn succubus, it's literally just a recolor. And I'm down with that. I'm not complaining about that. I just don't think there's much of a difference. And I think I get the question here, could we ever get a system where basically like you spray paint your ship in dock? And I'd kind of be all for that. Just, it means that the skins are going to have to be that little bit more special, like the Dawn skins, like the Heartbreaker skins, not the Rosethorn skins. Those skins that change things drastically, like the Heartbreaker and the Dawn, are the skins that, become skins, whereas, if you've got something like a Rosethorn that's just basically a spray paint recolor, that should just be a spray paint recolor. Now, to talk about Apex Legends briefly, there was a developer AMA on Reddit recently where they talked about skins and like why they're so expensive and this kind of thing there. And one of the things that someone asked is, well, why don't you just do more recolors? And the response that was given was, well, ultimately we've got a very small team, and obviously it's an even smaller team that are doing the skins, and there's a lot of back and forth that goes between concept, design, and implementation. So these things actually take longer than a lot of perhaps the community may realise. Means that, it's not just a skin is not just a quick slapdash, there you go, wham bam, thank you ma'am. It's something that does require some actual tweaking. You don't just design the skin once and then slap it onto every ship. Each individual ship has to have that skin tweaked to actually fold properly around it. It does genuinely take time. If you look at the Dawn skins, for an example, where you've got the little white lines and the fading, that changes from ship to ship to ship, which means you come up with a basic concept of the Dawn skin, but then you do have to manually edit it for each hull that you're then going to apply it to. This meant that the developers at Respawn for Apex Legends mentioned that they basically had the choice. They could add 10 recolors or 1 new legendary skin. And for the most part, the 1 legendary skin is so much more exciting. And I agree with that. I'd like to see more skins like the Dawn skins, more like the Halloween, the Grimace ones like that, rather than just straight up recolors. I think recolors could be an interesting thing later on, that you just buy a can of spray paint, basically, and turn your Hurricane from Minmatar Rust to luminescent green. That could be pretty cool. It just needs to be implemented in a fairly easy way, and I feel that it needs to be done in such a way that doesn't take away massive amounts of development time from other things. Anyway, Lance Dot here says that additional customization options for ships will be released in June, and I'm pretty sure that is more skins. I don't think that's a case of, adding entire, new ways to customize your ship, like redesigning what its hull looks like. I would take that to mean more skins, or they'd be shouting out about it a lot more, I feel. Are there plans on adding a touch mark or maker's marks to player-manufactured ships? A way to track where it was built, by whom, and when? Little stuff like that makes the world feel alive, giving the ships more personality and hence more reason to grow attached to it. Now, Kylum says, ships manufactured by players adhere to consistent manufacturing standards and thus wouldn't need a maker's mark. We really like this idea though, and will consider adding the ability to add a maker's mark to certain rare and precious items manufactured by players in the future. And I'll be honest, this is actually a really cool little system. If you, again, just to use World of Warcraft as an example, you can often check a piece of gear, and at the bottom it has little sort of the triangular brackets that will say, made by so-and-so. And if you buy something on the auction house, or you have someone in your guild or whatever make something for you, it does come with that tag, made by, at the bottom. And I get that. That can be really cool to sit there and almost have an artisan. Like, half of my fleet would say made by Lord Raman or made by Yatsuki. Definitely, or yoyoi, there's a lot of, there's a small group of people who basically build all of my stuff. So yeah, I think having maker's marks could be pretty cool, and you could implement it as simply as that. Just a bit of text on the ship's actual page, like at the bottom of the fitting page or something, that just has in brackets, made by, and then the name of the player. Obviously this is prone to certain kinds of abuse, like if you've got, there are some very dodgy names I've seen out there in New Eden, and I would not want my flagship to have been built by some guy running around with the name like Big Schlong Dave. You know, Silent Rose, made by Big Schlong Dave. No, I would genuinely sell that and try and find another one on the market. But it does, in a sense, actually encourage you to go back to the same artisans to make the same stuff over and over again. As I said, you get like a collection. Like, you know, the Raman collection. That would be pretty sweet. I'm not going to lie, that would be pretty sweet. And I do get the idea that, yeah, you're using blueprints, so they are manufactured to consistent standards. But, you know what? I still think that would be pretty cool. I still think that would be pretty cool, and I'd be all for having that added, even at just a simple level like that. Anyway, there we go. There are our 4 weekly developer Q&A questions. Jung ships are coming back in July. Could just be the prototypes. I'm hoping we are getting the new one soon, because, oh my goodness, if you haven't watched my video on the Shanwei Destroyer, the non-prototype version, go check it out. Type it into YouTube now. Captain Benzie. Shanwei Destroyer. I think you do actually have to put the hyphen in there, so maybe I'll put a link on screen. That is a really cool destroyer, and I really want to fly it in live because it's so cool, and I like that ship so much. I really want it added soon. I think that, yeah, we could have some interesting ways of shortening travel time, but there comes a point where, again, you kind of have to say that the large distances is kind of the point of EVE, and you do need to accept that there are large distances. That's why it's important where you choose your base, where you choose to actually settle down and start collecting your ships, etc. What you make as your home system actually matters. If you're based all the way out in Fountain, and you're consistently wanting to do stuff all the way over in Heimatar, or you're running errands into Innsmother, for example, that's not a good place to be based then, is it? Move closer. There are ways around this. New customization options coming in June, and hopefully we might get maker's marks added to player ships, etc., and other rare things at some point in the future. Anyway, folks, thank you for watching this one right the way to the end. As usual, let me know your thoughts and opinions on these things, and make sure you're asking the developers your own questions that you want responded to find out more about how things are going with the development of EVE Echoes. Thank you for watching, folks. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden.